Pozdrav svima i dobrodošli na prvu Render Show online glazbenu konferenciju ili webinar. Drago mi je da smo započeli sa ovim projektom po prvi puta. Sigurno ćemo nastaviti godišnje imati nekoliko ovakvih webinara, zvati online glazbenu konferenciju ili webinar. Industrije, ne samo iz regije, drago mi je da smo započeli sa ovim projektom po prvi puta. Danas očekuje jedan gost iz regije, očekuje nas gost iz Amerike, također Damir Markotić iz Švicarske, koji je rodom iz Hrvatske, koji radi tamo u velikoj regiji, kompaniji, tako da siguran sam da ćete čuti mnoge zanimljive informacije, da ćete naučiti nešto novo i da ćete postati dio našeg Render Show projekta. Za ovdje koji me ne znaju, ja sam Martin Gospić. Prije skoro ajmo reći 15 godina, 2018. godine, postali dio našeg osnova institut, učilište, edukaciju za glazbene producente. Prije 2018. godine sam dio Unazad akademije, znači da smo već 15 godina, ajmo reći ispravni u obrazovanjima u kreativnim djelatnostima. Osim same glazbene produkcije i audio inženjeringa, nudimo mnoge kreativne odjele, video produkcija, grafički dizajn, game design, fotografija i osim kreativne branše. Render Show konferencija se većinom zapravo veže uz taj naš audio audio segment, osim klasično govori studijskog dijela, audio inženjeringa i audio produkcije. Ćemo narediti tečaj iz live inženjerstva koji su zapravo bazirani na nekim osnovama za ton majstore. Ono što smo primijetili tečaj iz live inženjerstva koji su zapravo primijetili da unazad nekoliko godina zapravo se dogodio jedan pad profesionalaca, odnosno pad zapravo koji se upisuju na akademiju koji bi se obrazovali na tom segmentu. Veliki dio tome je pridonijela situacija sa koronom koja je trajala dugi period, više od 2 godine, tako da se puno promjena u tom smjeru. Damir Markotić, koji dolazi iza mene, će prezentirati zapravo kako je ta situacija izgledala iz smjera i segmenta više od velike rental kompanije. Damir je zaposlenik u najvećoj švicarskoj kompaniji koja se bavi eventima, tako da u biti će donijeti neke segmentične brojke koje se događale po dolasku korone i najveće zapravo iz nekakve nastavila se nakon što je sama korona. Tako da u biti će donijeti neke slike prikažem sa naše akademije. Stvarno 15 godina smo se zaista naučili dobro obrazovati ljude. Mi smo sada 2018. godine dio međunarodne mreže profesionalaca i 25 kampusa diljem svijeta, tako da je Unazad ajmo reći jedna velika sinergija obrazovnih voditelja diljem cijelog svijeta. I to nakon nekako 15-godišnje iskustvo obrazovanje, tako da je Unazad ekstenciju u smjeru velika sinergija voditelja Render Show projekta. Na tom nekom početku okupljanje veliku mrežu profesionalaca iz audio segmenta rakete i same slike koje možete zapravo vidjeti i na našoj stranici rendershow.eu popis svih zanimanja i zapravo segmenta u kojem segmentamo djelovati kroz obrazovanja koje možete zapravo edukacije naše stranice kako bi zapravo podizali sve više i više svijet i kvalitetu samih ljudi i tehničara koji se nalaze na našem području i u regiji. Zaista smo prepoznali kroz ovaj godišnji rad, da postoji jako veliki broj ljudi koji se bavili svoj razvoj, tehnologije sve više i više, ona jako brzo napreduje, jako postoji nova tehnologija koji se zapravo ulaže u obrazovanje i premalo pojedinci ulažu samo svoje vlastito obrazovanje, sve bi se taj level podigao na neku još veću razinu. Nama je nekako stvarno cilj obrazovanje, godišnji rad se razlog pojedinčati, sama promijeniti situacije, obrazovanje sve Hrvatska i više regije, podiće i samog pristupa u poslu, samog profesionalizma, svega, tako da to je nešto što definitivno šta tamo će trebamo biti razumni. Samo sekunde, dobio sam informaciju da se čuje tvoje udibilo. Samo sekundicu, pauza od 1 minute. Društvo, isprike, imali smo jedan tehnički problem sa samim zvukom. Da, kako zanimljivo, pričamo o profesionalcima, pričamo o 15 godina obrazovanja, sve smo istestirali, ali evo, napravili smo propust jedan sa zvukom, nema veze, to su situacije, stvari koje se događaju. I to je neka velika, da odmah kažem, i ta razlika koju sami znate između onog studijskog posla kad imate kontrolirane uvjete i onog live posla kad su uvjeti nekontrolirani, kada, evo, dobio sam informaciju da je zvuk sad dobar, moja greška, YouTube mi je ostao upaljen sa pojačanim zvukom. Tako da ja sam kriv, nisu drugi. Da, situacije zapravo koje se događaju i iz tog razloga treba provjeriti stvari više puta na više razina i što je više moguće ulagati u obrazovanje i praksu kako bi zapravo sve te neke situacije u tim nekim nekontroliranim uvjetima kao što je live i u ovoj situaciji našoj gdje imamo ovaj live stream. Obećajem da smo sad i mi nešto naučili drugi put, da se to neće dogoditi. Ja se nadam da ste me uspjeli možda nešto čuti, ali evo, vratit ću se brzinski. Marin Gospić prije 15 godina osnovao M-Institut, školu za audio, inženjering i glazbenu produkciju. 2018. godine postali dio United Pop Akademije, 25 kampusa diljem svijeta, u mnogim kreativnim zanimanjima, ali ovdje se trenutno bavimo isključivo samo sada sa audijom vezano za sami rand show. Pokazao sam neke slike, to ste vjerovatno već i vidjeli, i pričao zapravo o nekim ljudima koji su u našem timu. Taj cijeli dio zapravo će dobiti još dodatno proširenja u imidž dijelu, u slici vezano uz kamere, vezano uz prikupljanje samog tona, na terenu, uz filmsku produkciju i cijelu zapravo tu neku tehničku industriju da što bolje zaokružimo u cijelu neku priču. Od kada smo startali zapravo sa samim projektom, odradili smo već veliki dio evenata, jer iza nas već stoji dobar dio profesionalaca koji se bave ovim poslom 20 i 30 godina. Čisto mogu prikazati neke slike nekih evenata gdje smo bili uključeni i u potpunosti ili uključeni samo u nekim dijelovima, da li je fog engineering, da li je monitor engineering, da li je video dio, screenovi, znači ovisno o kojem eventu se zapravo radilo. Trenutno naši profesionalci dosta odlaze na odrađivanje poslova i van Hrvatske. Možda jedan od najznačajnijih evenata koji smo radili dolje u lijevom uglu je John Lord Orchestra, to ste čuli svi zato, znači Bruce Dickinson, frontman Iron Maidena, za njega smo radili monitoring u Zagrebu, Sarajevu i Ljubljani i dobili smo pozivnicu da se pridružimo zapravo njegovom timu u svrhu europske turneje, da radimo monitoring, što je nama isto jedna velika nagrada i veliko priznanje u ovom tek početku s čime smo zapravo krenuli. Kažem, naši ljudi trenutno odlaze na posao od Švicarske, danas je dio ekipa otišao za Mađarsku, čeka ih Brno, Minhen, tako da ne samo u Hrvatskoj, kojih evenata ima i dosta. Ovdje na desnoj slici vidite dva naša tehničara koji su radili Jesus Christ Superstar, za kazalište Komedija. Ova predstava je iz Rijeke i tu smo radili fog engineering i sound technician. Tako da u biti poslovi se odrađuju i u Hrvatskoj i naravno u inozemstvu i jako nam je drago da zbog ove naše cijele edukacije, našeg znanja koje imamo zapravo možemo naše kvalitetne ljude poslati na te neke svjetske produkcije i velike produkcije. Sada, koja je zapravo cijela priča sa render show projektom, render show konceptom? Ono što mi želimo da nam se za početak jave i profesionalci i početnici. Početnici možda koji se nikada s time nisu bavili, a htjeli bi se s time baviti, imaju želju i volju, ili oni koji su poluprofesionalci, rade već taj posao, da li u smislu audija, lighta, videa, a htjeli bi podići razinu svog znanja na puno viši level, ili oni koji su već profesionalci, kojima je već znanje na jako visokom levelu, će pridonijeti zapravo cijeloj toj organizaciji i cijeloj priči. Da li u svrhu možda proširivanja još dodatno njihovog znanja ili će ići u svrhu možda edukacije početnika, tako da bitno da stvorimo tu jednu veliku sinergiju. Ono što će biti definitivno plan kroz vrijeme da ćemo raditi i on-site evente koji će se događati na velikim lokacijama uz velike razglase, veliki stage, veliku postavu gdje će svi naši profesionalci u našem timu i ljudi u našem timu imati mogućnost te jedne praktične nastave i vježbe u što kvalitetniji rad. Nakon što nam se javite, kreće zapravo taj neki razvoj. Mi moramo prilagoditi razinu dodatnog obrazovanja u teoriji i praksi po levelima. Znači kada vas sve one ljude koji imamo u poolu i novi ljudi koji dolaze, kada vas istestiramo, mi vrlo jasno vas možemo staviti u određenu kategoriju koja je vaša razina znanja, na kojem ste levelu i na čemu bi trebali zapravo raditi kroz idućih tjedana, mjeseci i godina kako bi dizali zapravo vašu kvalitetu. To ćemo sve odrađivati kroz edukacije, konferencije, kroz i pravne podrške naravno i prakse na eventima. Nakon te cijele priče rezultat će biti podizanje kvalitete freelancera i zaposlenika u rental tvrtkama. Znači, u ovoj situaciji da neko ne doživi zapravo krivo, ako je neko zaposlen u nekoj rental kompaniji i dalje on nastavlja raditi u svojoj kompaniji, ono što mi radimo zapravo dižemo kvalitetu znanja te osobe u isto vrijeme kada radimo to i za one koji su freelanceri. Samim time zapravo i njihova razina znanja će im omogućiti da i oni dolaze na puno veće poslove i na puno bolje poslove. Tako da nije nikakva ideja koncepta ili projekta preuzeti nekom posao ili što god u negativnom aspektu, nego jednostavno da u Hrvatskoj i u regiji pokušamo podići sve skupa na jednu puno veću razinu kako bi profitirali zapravo i freelanceri i rental kompanije na kraju krajeva. I kroz cijelu tu priču zapravo da pokušamo osigurati dodatni posao u regiji i inozemstvu. Tako da svi oni koji su se pridružili našoj priči kroz cijelu sinergiju zapravo trudimo se osiguravati svim našim članovima dodatne poslove koji će biti na najvišoj mogućoj razini. Naravno, u početku oni manjeg znanja će odrađivati jednostavnije poslove, dok oni koji će biti višeg znanja će biti stavljeni na puno veće i kvalitetnije projekte. Sad, cijeli cilj je zapravo da se poslovi obave što kvalitetnije. Ovaj cijeli sustav nudi jednu kontrolu da kada se nas kontaktira i kada mi pošaljemo osobu, pošaljemo tebe na određenu poziciju i posao, mi stojimo iza tebe, mi stojimo iza toga. Za klijenta, za rental kompanije to znači puno, jer se neće dogoditi situacija da će dobiti osobu koja nije educirana, koja nije kvalitetna. Znači s naše strane mora dolaziti zapravo najbolja osoba za taj posao, najkvalitetnije obučena osoba za taj posao, kako bi se posao odradio na najvećoj mogućoj razini i samim time zapravo kao rezultat dolaze puno kvalitetniji poslovi. Ono što bi trebalo napraviti svakako je definirati cijene rada. Uvijek će postojati oni koji će spustiti svoju cijenu za 80% samo da bi nešto odradili, ali to nisu profesionalci. Ideja cijele priče je zapravo da opet kada se, ajmo reći, kontaktira i kada Rent Show kao organizacija pruža uslugu, da vrlo jasno postoji definirana cijena koja odgovara stanju na tržištu, stanju u državi i svim mogućim drugim aspektima, stanju koliko ste vi ulagali godina i vremena u vaše obrazovanje i edukaciju. Tako da cijena mora odgovarati tom poslu i ideja da dovedemo određenu standardizaciju i na određenu razinu cijelu priču. Definiranje pozicije rada, jako bitna stvar. Znači, ne smije se događati situacija u kojoj je neko zaposlen, ajmo reći, za nekom projektu za FOH inženjera, a da onda on mora istovarati kamion, nositi kutije. Znači, to se neće događati. To se ne može događati u situaciji kada cijela priča ide preko nas, jer mi to odrađivati nećemo. Ako je prethodno dogovoreno da će ta osoba pomoći i istovarati kamion, to će se dodatno platiti i ako je naš tehničar, tonac ili što god pristao na to, onda je to stvarno ok. Ali nema iskorištavanja radnika, to je iduća stavka, spriječiti iskorištavanje gdje će se zapravo spriječiti iskorištavanje gdje će se pokušati sa strane i rental kompanija naplaćivati velike iznose za same evente, a onda potplaćivati same radnike i imati premali broj ljudi na terenu koji će odrađivati posao i onda moraju svi raditi sve. To je jedna praksa koja u Hrvatskoj i u regiji postoji već jedan dugi niz godina, ali to je nešto što ne postoji u Europi i u svijetu. Kako dosta radimo za van, tamo su toliko stvari vrlo jasno izdefinirane i toliko lijepo funkcioniraju da jednostavno želimo taj sustav napraviti u Hrvatskoj i sigurni smo da će u tom nekom krugu zapravo ići na svačije zadovoljstvo. Jel? Možda ne onih koji bi htjeli plaćati manje, a zarađivati više, ali trebaju biti svjesni da vi kao profesionalci ste jedni od najbitnijih faktora njihovim zaradama i da bi vi jednako tako trebali dobivati pošteni posao za rad i odrađivati one poslove za koje ste određeni. I samim time zapravo dolazi i ta neka regulativa zapravo plaćanja. Jel? Ako ste vi danas odradili posao, vi u tom tjednu trebate, najkasnije u tom tjednu trebate biti za posao plaćeni, nema situacije u kojoj ste odradili projekt i posao, a čekate iduća 2-3 mjeseca da bi dobili vaš novac za koji ste odradili. Tako da te situacije se neće događati, uvijek naravno postoje neke neplanirane situacije, neki dogovori, ali ako tvrtkama s koje strane ste vi angažirani, ako njima kasne po 2 mjeseca, onda je to njihov problem. Neka oni rješavaju onda sa klijentom koji je naručio posao samo plaćanje, ali mi želimo zapravo to izregulirati da vi nakon što ste obavili posao budete za to plaćeni, jer na kraju krajeva i muzičari koji su dio takvih evenata budu plaćeni u većini slučajeva 50% avansno ili ponekad 100% avansno, u ovoj situaciji 50% avansno, drugih 50% dođe na dan samog koncerta. Vi ste jednako artisti kao što su to i glazbenici, tako da vi za vaš posao u koji ste godinama ulagali bi trebali biti plaćeni odmah i pošteno. Tako da evo, u kratkim crtama sam isprezentirao zapravo cijelu ovu priču, što se trudimo napraviti i što radimo zadnjih godinu dana, i projekt je zaista vrlo uspješno krenio i vrlo uspješno se razvija. I kažem, ova cijela konferencija je nešto što ćemo ponavljati, usudio bi se reći možda i svaka 3 mjeseca, sa još više gostiju, sa još bogatijim programom, i to je zapravo ta ideja neke cijele priče, da kroz te neke konferencije, edukacije unosimo što više novih informacija koje će vam koristiti. Svi oni koji su zainteresirani biti dio naše cijele priče, na stranici randershow.eu imate kontakt prijavu, odnosno na ovom page-u RTS 2023 postoji pristupnica koju možete popuniti, da nam se pridružite, da vas upoznamo, da vidimo šta radite i da krenemo zapravo u tu neku drugu stavku razvoja cijele priče. 2 minute pauze i prepuštam vas idućem gostu. Vidimo se uskoro. Bok!
Pozdrav svima, evo i ja sam došao na red nakon ovih početnih audio problema, mislim da smo sad na konju i možemo nastaviti punom parom. Ja sam Damir Markotić i ispričat ću vam danas malo nešto o event i live-com industriji u Švicarskoj. Samo da ja podijelim svoj screen sad. Sekund. Evo ga. Evo, uspjeli smo i to. Dakle, kao što rekoh, event i live-com industrija u Švicarskoj. Krećemo sa malo sitnih detalja i o meni, čisto da znate s kim imate posla. Ja sam Damir Markotić, kao što sam rekao, i počeo sam već sa nekakvih 6 godina ulaziti u industriju time što sam počeo svirati gitaru, rekli bi moji starci, tad sam već skrenuo s puta. Nakon što sam u Hrvatskoj završio školovanje za audio inženjera iz glazbenog producenta na EMI institutu tadašnjem, malo sam se još zadržao u Hrvatskoj, ušao sam i u live industriju, pored toga što sam se studijskom glazbom i studijom bavio, i ubrzo nakon toga sam zapravo otišao u Švicarsku. Tamo sam u jednoj manjoj firmi se zaposlio kao tonski tehničar i počeo zapravo ponovno ispočetka sve, upoznavat kompletnu industriju, upoznavat firme, snalazit se na jednom novom području tad za mene. I ubrzo nakon toga, unatoč tome što sam tek novi bio, su me nakon 3 mjeseca stavili u ured, rekli ti obavljaj projekte i vodi to sve skupa, tako da sam postao voditelj event odjela. I nije ni nakon toga, samo da se razumijemo, ovo što sjedim u uredu, nije to tako stvarno bilo. U malim firmama znamo svi kako to funkcionira, svi sve radimo, tako da ovo više varka nego istina, ali ubrzo nakon toga, znači godinu dana nakon što sam došao u Švicarsku, zaposlio sam se u najvećoj švicarskoj event teh firmi i kao project manager, i kroz godine zapravo uznapredovo do ovog gdje sam sad. O tome ćemo kasnije malo više popričati. Da popričamo prvo o Švicarskoj, o tržištu i o trendovima u Švicarskoj, o nekakvim brojkama, čisto da ste malo upoznati sa tim. Švicarska, koja je zemlja od 8 miliona stanovnika, krajem 2022. godine imala je 424 registriranih poduzeća specijaliziranih za tehničku produkciju događaja. Od tih 424 firmi je 271 samostalni poduzetnik, bila to mala event firmica sa opremom, mali rental ili freelanceri koji su se registrirali kao firma. A 153 poduzeća broji više od jednog zaposlenika. Tu ubrajamo velik broj, recimo onih srednje malih firmi, 10, 15, 20, 30 ljudi, kojih je po cijeloj Švicarskoj masa i zapravo su razbacani po svim kutevima Švicarske. Da vidimo. Ova brojka, pretpostavljate već o čemu se radi. Švicarska event industrija je 2019. godine napravila promet od 5,56 milijardi eura, a od toga samo milijarda cijelih 39 otpada na tehničku produkciju događaja. Znači, čisto da razumijete okvire o kojima pričamo. U Švicarskoj live.com i event industriji. Evo ga. Jedan bitan element švicarske live.com industrije je to da su, što se tiče nekih službenih stvari, dosta dalje od nas tu u Hrvatskoj. To znači konkretno da od 1995. godine uz pomoć Audio Engineering Society-a je uveden tonski tehničar kao struka službeno, uz takozvani test sposobnosti koji se do dan danas polaže svake 2 godine, znači oni provode te ispite i tako zapravo daju diplome tonskim tehničarima. Od 2000. godine imamo još jednu dodatnu stvar koja se pojavljuje na inicijativu udruge SVTB, a to je Švicarski savez tehničkih i scenskih i događajnih zanimanja. To je event tehničar, isto kao struka, i to zapravo daje taj kamen temeljac daljnim nekakvim koracima. Od tad se pojavljuju razne škole i tečajevi za obrazovanje tehničara za događaje, a 2011. godine pak tehnička strukovna škola u Zürichu službeno uvodi strukovno obrazovanje koje je recimo usporedivo sa 4-godišnjom srednjom školom kod nas. Dakle, morate si to zamisliti tako da djeca nakon osnovne škole se mogu odlučiti za posao event tehničara i 2015. godine je 20 maturantica i maturanata prve generacije uspješno položilo te završne ispite i od tad mi zapravo svake godine imamo nove tehničare koji su od malena zapravo u toj struci. Idemo time do ključnih aktera. Rekao sam da ima bezbroj tih malih poduzeća od 10-15 ljudi, međutim ima i nekoliko velikih firmi, tih ključnih firmi, i od tih 150 poduzeća je to zapravo možda nekakvih, ta šačica koju tu vidite, koja zapošljava 50 ili više zaposlenika. To su Bild und Ton, Event AG, Flashlight, Smartek i Avizo. Oni se nalaze svi u centralnoj Švicarskoj, u blizini Züricha, a svaka od njih ima nekakve svoje posebnosti, bilo to u vrsti opreme koju oni vode, recimo u audio opremi, jedni vode samo D&B, drugi vode samo L akustik i tako dalje, ili bilo u vrsti usluge gdje recimo jedni nude i projektni dizajn i tako dalje i prate zapravo klijenta od početka do kraja, a drugi su čisti rental koji samo iznajmljuju opremu i to je to. Osim tih ključnih firmi koji tu vidite, postoje još 2 veće firme. To su firme koje imaju preko 100 zaposlenika i da se razumijemo, tu se radi većinski o project menadžerima koji rade projekte, a jednim manjim dijelom onda naravno i kompletna logistika i tehničari i tako dalje. Tu treba napomenuti također da od ovih prijašnjih firmi koje sam vam pokazao, ima nekoliko njih koji isto zapošljavaju 100 zaposlenika ili više, ali tu se radi o firmama koje pored rentala imaju i odjele instalacije ili premium audio odjela i tako dalje, zato ih ne ubrajam u ova 2 najveća. Ovo je dakle kompletno event tehnička firma. Ja ću vam danas ispričati nešto o ovoj desnoj firmi koju vidite, to je Winkler Live.com. I malo ćemo u brojkama prvo pogledati da znate o čemu se radi, nekoliko hard factsa. Winkler Live.com je osnovan 1996. godine, već je 27 godina u event industriji, a tehnički podržava preko 3000 događaja godišnje. Da, to je nekakvih 10-11 događaja dnevno i to je zaista tako. Bilo to većih ili manjih, najvećim dijelom se zapravo radi o velikim događajima koje mi pratimo. Na 14.000 kvadratnih metara skladišta raspolažemo sa 10.000 proizvoda, a s godišnjim prometom od 25 milijuna eura svake godine investiramo oko 1,5 milijuna do 2 milijuna eura u novu opremu. To je dosta bitan element kod nas, dakle jako puno od tog zapravo prometa mi uspijemo odvajati u nove tehnologije, u inovacije. Imamo tim koji istražuje te inovacije, gleda koji su najnoviji proizvodi, kakav proizvod ima smisla, kakav je čisto, oko kojih proizvoda se diže čisto samo pompa, a nije ništa posebno. Donio sam vam par slika da vidite kako to izgleda kod nas u našem skladištu, recimo. Ovo nam je ulaz u skladište s jedne strane, vidite tu s desne strane na slici, dakle proteže se na nekoliko katova. Imamo, znači na 3 kata zapravo plus podrum, imamo kat jedan za audio, jedan za light, jedan za video i jedan zapravo za kompletnu elektroniku, elektriku, mehaniku, rigging, kablove i tako dalje. Ovo konkretno je sad kat sa kablovima i raznim adapterima i tako dalje, plus imamo i dio u kojem pohranjujemo zapravo proizvode koje smo specijalno izradili samo za nekakvog klijenta pa ih čuvamo kod sebe u skladištu. Ovo je naš rigging ponos. Imamo što se tiče rigginga najviše opreme u Švicarskoj. Dakle, 30 kilometara aluminija, dovoljno za od tu do kud želite. I ne biste vjerovali, ali često naiđem i nema skoro ničeg unutra. Dakle, nije da smo napumpani opremom i ne koriste se, nego zapravo se dogodi da uđem, a potpuno je prazno. To, s obzirom da odrađujemo i sajmove svakakve i tako dalje, može se dogoditi da ima 3-4 sajmišta velika u Švicarskoj i nek se dogode 2-3 velika sajma istovremeno i zapravo je kompletna oprema vani. Tu nam je ulaz opreme i izlaz opreme, to znači vidite tu recimo na desnoj slici jedno polje 14, polja su tako pripremljena da zapravo stanu u kamion takvog, da zapravo ne moramo ni računati, gledati da li stane ili ne stane, nego se tako pripremi na polju da znamo, evo ovako proizvodi mogu ići van i kad dođe kamion mi ga zapravo samo, ili bolje rečeno logističari ga samo napumpaju i to je to. S ove strane koju tu vidite ovaj otvor, to je znači ulaz materijala kad se vraća sa eventa, tu ulazi, iza, znači ne vidi se na slici naravno, je izlaz kad oprema izlazi van. Kad oprema ulazi u skladište, onda kroz ona vrata iza uđe i ide odmah lijevo u jednu drugu prostoriju, a to je takozvani quality control i material control. S desne strane tu vidite nekoliko motora koji su došli sa produkcije, koje treba sve otvoriti, pregledati, očistiti i tako dalje. S lijeve strane na slici vidite u daljini iza je jedna produkcijska traka koja zapravo ide kroz tu cijelu prostoriju. Za tom trakom sjede zaposlenici logistike i svaki logističar zapravo ima drugi posao u vezi tog materijala. Logističari su školovani na naš materijal, tako da znaju kako održavati taj materijal. Evo, ovo su te trake izbliza. Vidite tu, dakle, od ozada zapravo krenu i oni ih guraju sa kejsevima, ali bez kejseva vade se stvari i oni uđu tu s desne strane na ovoj slici, vidite zapravo se očiste prvo, sve se pospremi, provjeri se da li je sva oprema u kejsu kakva bi trebala biti. Svaki kejs ima zapravo etiketu na kojoj piše šta treba biti u tom kejsu, to se provjerava, šalje se dalje po ovoj traci i sa lijeve strane vidite nekoliko ovih polja koje idu natrag. Tamo na tim poljima imaju svakakvi utori, štekeri i tamo se testiraju svi kablovi i svi uređaji. Dakle, svi mogući priključci su tamo i samo se priključuju uređaji i šalju dalje. Uz skladište imamo i za vrijeme korone zapravo nastoji taj studio koji imamo. To sastoji se od više prostorija, imamo prostoriju za šminku, imamo prostoriju za pripremu govornika koji ulaze kasnije u studio, da se malo opuste, da popiju nešto, za to vrijeme mogu gledati stream uživo, jel? I sami studio, ali to ću vam pokazati kasnije još malo više. Sad dolazimo do naših glavnih područja djelovanja, a to su naravno events i exhibitions, dakle događaji i sajmovi, odnosno izložbe. To je naravno centralni dio našeg poslovanja i djelovanja. Odrađujemo od public eventa preko corporate evenata do svakakvih sajmova, koncerata, partija, zapravo cijeli spektar evenata pokrivamo. Podijeljeni su u razne odjele i uvijek postoje određeni odjeli koji samo rade sajmove, koji samo rade koncerte, samo rade i tako da zapravo u svakom području imamo specijalistu samo za nešto, da ne odrađujemo uvijek sve. Iz početka kad si nov u firmi, onda te šalju u sve odjele, da sve vidiš, da isprobaš sve isplanirat i s vremenom se zapravo sam profiliraš i odlučiš u kojem smjeru ćeš ići. Pored toga imamo odjel installationsa i mi isto i nas, tih 100 osoba koje sam rekao, koje kod nas rade, u njih ne ubrajamo ove iz installationsa, oni zapravo odrađuju samo te fiksne instalacije klubova, raznih banki i tako dalje. I naravno, naše najmlađe područje djelovanja su digitalni mediji i studijske produkcije, kojim se aktivno bavimo tek od 2020. godine, odnosno od pandemije. Sad, malo i o meni, odnosno šta sam prošao u firmi Winkler Lifecom. 2017. sam prešao u Winkler Lifecom iz ove manje firme i zaposlio sam se kao project manager. Odrađivao sam svakakve projekte, razne manje i veće projekte po Švicarskoj i inozemstvu, a s obzirom da imam 2 djece, želja mi je bila da budem više lokalno usidren, pa sam godinu dana kasnije prešao u poziciju project managera za jednu specifičnu dvoranu, gdje sam u jednom malom timu planirao i izvodio sve događaje. Opet ponavljam, od velikih corporate evenata preko privatnih događaja i partija, pa sve do koncerata, partija i slično. Sajmovi, izložbe. U toj dvorani i u tom timu smo odrađivali nekih 300 događaja godišnje. Znači, to je, da se razumijemo, u toj dvorani tim od 4 ljudi, mi smo odrađivali 300 događaja godišnje, dakle skoro jedan događaj dnevno za kompletni tim koji je tamo bio usidren u dvorani. 2019. godine sam postao voditelj tog tima, a 2020. godine sam postao voditelj kompletnog odjela Venue Services, koji pruža tehničku podršku događajima, u raznim dvoranama i salama po Švicarskoj. Evo tu vidimo recimo i malo moj područje djelovanja. Eto tad za vrijeme toga, to je bilo 2019. godine. Pored toga sam se uvjetovano pandemijom COVID-a pojačano počeo baviti i virtualnim i digitalnim događajima, virtualnim platformama i tehnologijom za izvođenje tih događaja, pa sam ubrzo zapravo postao glavni savjetnik po pitanju te vrste evenata u firmi. Dakle, ja sam vam ponio sa sobom malo slika iz firme, čisto da vidite kakve događaje imam iza sebe. Ovo je zapravo prvi veći događaj koji sam imao, to je 2017. godina. Izazov je zapravo bio, izradili smo jedan unikat, ovo željezno čudo tu, koje zapravo ima mislim da je tona i 800 kila, znači skoro 2 tone, a nosivost ove dvorane je bilo nešto između 200 i 500 kila, više se ni ne sjećam točno. U svakom slučaju je to trebalo postaviti u toj dvorani i raspodijeliti teret zapravo na dovoljnu kvadraturu da to sve skupa izdrži. Osim toga što smo i kompletno drvo željezno zapravo izradili sami, odnosno projektirali pa dali u izradu, to je, kao što vidite, LED drvo, tu smo LED zidove, odnosno panele, uzeli i jednostavno ih pozakačili po tom drvetu. To je na kraju krajeva izgledalo ovako, kao što vidite na ovoj snimci. Dakle, kompletno drvo je u LED zidovima, a oko drveta smo postavili nekoliko monitora, displeja koji onda prikazuju ime pjevača koji trenutno nastupa na stage-u. Eto ga. Evo sad svi drugi eventi koje još imam nisu poslagani po vremenskoj po vremenskom kako su se događali, nego sam ih jednostavno evo malo poredio da to lijepo izgleda. Ovo lijevo je bio indijski event, radili smo event za jednu indijsku kompaniju koja je u Švicarskoj došla nagraditi svoje najbolje prodavače. Oni kompletno dođu sa svojim kuharima, sa svojim timovima svega mogućeg i dosta zahtjevni klijenti, ne bi se reklo, ali zapravo jako zahtjevno. Ovo desno je pravi tehno party, hardcore tehno, često smo ih provodili tu, to je sad konkretno jedno i drugo je ta dvorana gdje sam radio prije. Razne konferencije, privatni događaj, tu s desne strane svječnjaci i dugi stol, to je bio rođendanski parti, festivale, šovove i televizijske, sajmove, sajam motora u Zürichu, ovo desno je open air kino u kojem se po starinski parkiraš sa autom i gledaš film. Konferencije razne, ovo desno je jedna dosta kontroverzna izložba bila, ovo su bila prava ljudska tijela koja su secirana, rastavljena i izložba je zapravo oni su ih rastavili i sve to prelakirali, nemam pojma kako to funkcionira, u svakom slučaju dosta kontroverzno bilo. Opet malo festivala, ovo je jedan posebni festival bio koji je stage je zapravo na vodi, na jezeru, a artisti zapravo čamcem prelaze do stage-a. Backstage je s druge strane jezera. Još jedan, ovo je house party s lijeve strane, ovo desno je izložba, vidi se egipatska kultura. I tako dalje, imamo malo i autoindustriju, koncerte od metala pa sve do voice-a. I dolazimo do 2020. godine, moram se malo proklikati brže da stignem do 6 sati. Odlučio sam malo popričati i podijeliti iskustva i što se tiče pandemije, covida, jer smo dosta inovativno iskoristili to vrijeme i pokazalo se kao veliki napredak za nas, ta kompletna pandemija. Tu na ovoj slici vidite događaj kojeg smo počeli graditi, setup smo radili u ožujku, znači krajem ožujka 2020. godine. Taman su se ograničili brojevi, znači početkom ožujka su se ograničavali događaji na 50 osoba, a mi kad smo završili zapravo setup te produkcije, tog eventa, došla je zapravo vladin apel odnosno ukinuli su evente kompletno, smjelo se naći samo još 15 osoba u jednom prostoru, zajednički počeo lockdown, mi smo brzo odreagirali, postavili u roku nekoliko sati event platformu, naručili kamere, maknuli kompletne stolice, vidite tu potpuno prazan prostor, nekoliko stolica ispred i kamera koja je taj događaj posnimala. To je zapravo bio početak našeg puta prema tim digitalnim eventima i mog osobnog puta prema digitalnim eventima. Naš godišnji prihod se 2020. smanjio za 50%, a i to samo zato što smo uspjeli zaračunati puno tih troškova otkazivanja. Da nije bilo toga, vjerojatno ne bi bilo skoro ničeg na početku. I fiksne troškove, znači ono što je bilo pozitivno kod nas je da je država preuzela troškove plaće za kompletnu našu industriju, a fiksne troškove nosi poduzeće. Sad, naravno, velika je pomoć što su te plaće preuzete, vjerojatno da nije toga bilo i naša firma bi propala ili se smanjila, ali na sreću toga je bilo, a fiksne troškove smo morali nositi sami. Baš iz tog razloga smo zapravo počeli gurat svakakve razne druge oblike evenata i postali inovativni. Da vidimo. Ova grafika na švicarskom je, ali ja ću vam ju objasniti. 50% poduzeća je za vrijeme pandemije bilo primorano dati otkaze. Znači polovica poduzeća je davalo otkaze. Dakle, vidite i po tome unatoč pomoći je zapravo bilo dosta teško što se tiče tih fiksnih troškova koji su u Švicarskoj užasno veliki, tako da jako puno firmi je bilo primorano da to napravi. 38% nije davalo otkaze, a 12% firmi je čak što više zaposlilo nove ljude. Mi spadamo u te firme od tih 12% koje je zaposlilo više ljudi, a pokazat ćemo naknadno i kako i zašto. Jedan bitan podatak je 43% freelancera je napustilo industriju događaja u tom trenutku ili kroz zadnje 2 godine i jedan jako mali dio tih freelancera se samo vratio. Evo ga, to je taj razlog zašto smo mi zapravo tako opstali i progurali se kroz tu kompletnu pandemiju. Počeli smo se baviti tim digitalnim i virtualnim događajima u svim mogućim oblicima, u hibridnim događajima, kao što se vidi na desnoj strani, ali i digitalnim sa lijeve strane. Evo nekoliko primjera. Ovo lijevo je bio koncert u kojem se zapravo prenosio čitavi koncert publici, a publika je s druge strane, ne vidi se tu za leđima kameramanima, je kompletna publika na LED zidu i band zapravo prati publiku i interagira, komunicira s njima. Ovo desno je bila jedna produkcija u kojoj smo 18 lokacija istovremeno streamali, zato toliko puno uređaja, zato toliko puno monitora. Istovremeno, znači, bio streaming 18 različitih prostorija i posjetitelji su se mogli zapravo preko neta fizički kretati kroz te događaje i odlučiti u kojoj dvorani žele gledati. Evo još malo nekoliko primjera događaja. Kratki prikaz tih digitalnih događaja, pričamo uvijek o tome, COVID je prošao i digitalni događaji su prošli, ali vidi se po ovoj grafici zapravo da 27% događaja u 2020. je bilo live, to je vjerojatno ta prva 3 mjeseca koja su bile prije pandemije, ovo kasnije zapravo sve bilo hibridno ili digitalno, a vidite i kasnije zapravo da hibridni oblici su u 2020. zapravo narasli, sve više i više ljudi se zapravo bavi tim digitalnim i hibridnim oblicima događaja, gdje jedan dio sudionika ili govornika je doma, a drugi dio live na mjestu događaja. Bitno je reći da nisam samo upao u to sve skupa s neba, nego nakon što sam završio menadžment događaja i slobodnog vremena na fakultetu za menadžment u turizmu i ugostiteljstvu u Opatiji, sam nastavio školovanje u United Pop Akademiji, tadašnjem EMI institutu, gdje sam završio glazbenu produkciju audio engineering. Pored znanja koje sam tamo stekao, među ostalim i u live segmentu, sam uspio steći i puno zapravo poznanstava i taj networking koji mi je kasnije zapravo bio ključni element da uopće i odem i u Švicarsku i tako dalje. Za kraj, pri kraju imamo još koju minuticu da završimo točno na vrijeme, bi usporedio industriju u Švicarskoj i Hrvatskoj i nabrojao nekoliko sličnosti i razlika. Što najviše čujem od hrvatskih kolega je da naša struka u Hrvatskoj nije organizirana i samim time nema nikakvog, zajednički organizirana i nema nikakvog utjecaja na politiku, što je bilo vidljivo recimo i za vrijeme pandemije. Naravno da veliku ulogu igra i činjenica da je u Švicarskoj školski sustav ispred našeg što se tiče toga, što se tiče te struke, s obzirom da se tehničari eventa mogu školovati unutar školskog sustava državnog, i pa se samim time puno više mladih odluči za tu struku. Kao posljedica tih triju prvih točaka je Švicarska i zakonski daleko razvijenija, pa postoje i zakoni posebni za event industriju, ponajviše o sigurnosti, tako da je točno određeno koliko smjene maksimalno mogu trajati, kakva se odjeća pri kojemu poslu nosi, recimo minimalni uvjeti za instalaciju uopće su recimo radne cipele, odnosno sigurnosna obuća klase S3. Čim se u dvorani obavljaju nekakvi visinski radovi, svi moraju nositi dodatno i radne kacige, recimo. Čisto kao primjere da malo dobijete osjećaj tih zakona. Evo nas na zaključku. Da malo rezimiramo i vidimo koje su mogućnosti suradnje i razmjene između industrija Švicarske i Hrvatske, gdje smo bili, gdje možemo još otići. Dosadašnja razmjena između švicarskog i hrvatskog tržišta svodi se na produkcije švicarskih firmi u Hrvatskoj i obratno. Švicarske firme u Hrvatskoj odrađuju recimo događaje svojih klijenata, tako da je naša firma već nekoliko puta radila evente za recimo poznata imena automobilske industrije u Hrvatskoj. To su najčešće nekakvi road showovi koji po cijelom svijetu se događaju, pa među ostalim u Hrvatskoj. A hrvatske firme u Švicarskoj većinom odrađuju koncerte hrvatskih izvođača za hrvatsku dijasporu u Švicarskoj. S obzirom da je za vrijeme pandemije COVID-a švicarsko tržište event tehnike napustilo 43% freelancera, kao što sam već rekao, samo ih se jedan mali dio vratio i to je današnje stanje, znači ostaje ta rupa. Švicarske firme čak i uz nedostatak ljudi teško pristaju na uvoz strane radne snage, pogotovo zbog upitne kvalitete tehničara iz inozemstva i svakakvih raznih drugih kriterija, recimo školovanja i njihovi certifikati koje oni imaju u Švicarskoj. Upravo taj dio zapravo, kad smo kod izgleda za budućnosti, upravo taj dio problema Rent the Show je odlučio ukloniti i kako bi hrvatskim event tehničarima omogućio rad na švicarskom, ali i drugim inozemnim tržištima. Pored školovanja na sve norme te zemlje i konkretnih školovanja na opremu koja se koristi u tim zemljama, ali i u firmama sa kojima Rent the Show surađuje, tehničari dobivaju platformu preko koje olakšano dobivaju zapravo pristup tom stranom tržištu. Rent the Show svojim imenom odgovara pred firmama, klijentima. U ovom slučaju, eto, u Švicarskoj isto. Eto, nadam se da sam vam u ovo kratko vremena uspio približiti tu kompletnu temu. Tu sam još pustio svoj kontakt, detalje, ako nekog još nešto zanima i ako neko još ima kakvo pitanje, slobodno se javite. I nakon jedne male kratke pauzice vraćamo se na idući blok predavanja. Pozdrav!
Pozdrav svima, dobrodošli natrag nakon ovog Damirovog iscrpnog objašnjenja kako stvari funkcioniraju u Švicarskoj i nadam se da ste prepoznali neke elementarne razlike između Hrvatske i Švicarske, samog pristupa poslu i s druge strane sam ja izuzetno ponosan što je Damir bio naš student i bio jedan od najboljih studenata i to je uvijek jedno osnovno pravilo tko je dobar student i ko se trudi ne samo kroz predavanja nego u onim danima kad nema predavanja uči, razvija se dalje i proširuje ono temeljno znanje koje je dobio, može doći do ovakve jedne pozicije zapravo gdje prođe veliku količinu velikih evenata, gdje zapravo bude dio ogromne jedne strukture i jedne korporacije koja zapravo odrađuje evente na cijelom svijetu, najviših standarda i razina i kroz to zapravo još dodatno stekne još više znanja, tako da nakon toga može odrađivati sve poslove. Drago nam je što je Damir dio nas, dio cijele priče i daje potpuni suport u svemu onome što radimo. Ja ću se sada prebaciti lagano na engleski. S nama je, prije ovog uvoda, s nama je Matej Gobec, naš s jedne strane dugogodišnji predavač na školi u Ljubljani, ali to nije bitno, nego je bitno ono sve što on radi mimo školi, mimo predavanja, svi oni njegovi projekti. Razumije ok hrvatski, ali mu je lakše malo na engleskom pričati, pa će biti bolje da se prebacimo na engleski. Nadam se da vam to neće predstavljati veliki problem. Matej Gobec je službeno Fochinženjer benda Laibach. Ono što je zanimljivo i bit će zanimljivo u ovoj cijeloj priči da je zaista s tim bendom obišao cijeli svijet i samim time možemo zapravo kroz neka pitanja dobiti sliku koje su neke razlike među državama, koje su možda najgore, koje su možda najbolje. Čak mislim da je Matej, koliko sam shvatio dobro, prvi tonac koji je ikada odradio neki rock koncert u Sjeverna Koreja, Južna Koreja, ne znam koja, sjeverna ili južna?
Sjeverna.
Južna, ok. Tako da sigurno će nam moći donijeti neke informacije, ispričati kako je to sve izgledalo. Ali naravno za početak prebacimo se na engleski. Matej, thank you for joining us, and after this start and short introduction, tell us a little bit more about you, what you are working beside Laibach, because about this topic we will continue later on. So you are reaching us from your, I would say, one of the best studio in Slovenia, and I could guess your studio business is working also well, not just live engineering. So Matej, thank you for coming.
Thank you for hosting me. Yes, I've worked, I started working as a live engineer at the pretty early age. 14 years old was my age when I mixed my first show. And I literally came from live environment, working with bands, venues, festivals, into studio environment. And lately I'm more kind of oriented in the studio. It's not actually because of ignoring the live sound and front of house engineering, but it just happened to be so because this studio that I have, we opened just when Corona started, and since then I am fully booked. I have a lot of international projects. I would say that more than 50% of my work is for international clients. I do a lot of productions with Israel. It's a really good place to be and very good clients. And I've worked with a couple of really big names. I've mixed records where, for example, Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses played on. I did projects with where Timagua played, and I have a couple of international sound rewards, and that's pretty much it. I've toured with some major bands such as Fishbone and Dub Trio, and then for the past 10 years I'm already front of house for Laibach, and in these 10 years I've only skipped one show, and that was for my wedding. But the rest, yes, I tour with them, as I said, for the past 10 years, and I'm in charge of their sound vision.
That's great. I remember I've been once, like, I don't know, I can't remember. It was like a couple of years ago when you were in Tvornica in Zagreb. And this was the first time I visit Laibach concert, and it was like more like a theater thing. And I can tell sound was amazing, and you definitely did a great job. So let's try to pull out some information from you, because like you really travel the whole world with Laibach. Can you tell me what was your like favorite gig, favorite experience, and what was your worst experience in terms of touring with Laibach? Doesn't matter if it's country, if it's another reason. The best when you really enjoyed, and the worst when you hated.
To be honest, I don't have like specific shows, but I can tell you a couple of kind of situations, or what is like my kind of ideal show. I really like to mix big shows, like really big. As the biggest is the show, the more happy I am.
How many crowd? Can you tell us the number? Was the top for the Laibach?
10,000. Yeah, 10,000. That's the stuff I enjoy to do, you know. It's like this adrenaline that you have, like kind of whole show under the control, and the big system, the bigger the system is, the better. I mean, the better is kind of a challenge, and the result of what you can get out of it. And yes, I mean, look, the thing is about touring is mostly where the gigs are problematic. It's for sure where the team is problematic. And why bands with big names hire professionals? They mostly hire them because they need a relying personnel, and this is where actually a professional sound engineer would make a game change, you know. So if you run into a situation where local crew is not doing what they're supposed to do, you actually are there to solve the issue, whatever it comes. But of course, your priority or like main position is doing sound. But a lot of times happens that you have to figure out what locals should figure out. There were several situations where we had even fire on the show, like on the last song once in Germany, started the fire in the electrical
installation,
and that kind of stuff can happen. And I had also a situation with Dub Trio where I got electric shock, a huge one in the middle of the changeover, because there were some issues with American kind of power supply connecting to European, and it was not grounded, and it hit me really hard. I was like fell over the whole stage. That was in Greece.
Crazy.
And we almost canceled the show, but somehow I managed to sort out problems. And there's a couple of situations where basically I saved the show because of my technical knowledge and problem solving kind of.
Yeah, when you're saying almost cancel the show, so was there a situation where the gig was actually canceled because production didn't respect the requirements, the rider what you expected as a band? Was this kind of situation?
We had situations where I could cancel it, but the thing is, when you are on tour, I mean, if you cancel a show,
then it's guilty on a band
money,
always.
so
Yeah.
It's always a money issue, but because I'm kind of, I came from a very, very alternative scene. I was mostly working with a lot of shitty equipment in the beginning, so I knew how to operate with it and like how to get the best out of it. So no, we didn't really cancel shows, but we had situations where we were like really late with the show start and stuff like that, but never really a cancellation.
Yeah. How much stuff there is in the Laibach production team beside of the band? How many additional persons are traveling?
Laibach is a very, very special, let's say, organization, collective. It's not a typical band because musicians, they change from projects to projects. So at the moment, we have 5 different shows that are the entire shows that are like completely different from one another. Not even songs repeat in the show. So we have like a musical with actors. We have a show with a big symphony orchestra with 130 channels of input. We have industrial kind of program, which is basically the old school Laibach. And then we have a festival program, and we have a touring program. So these are 5 shows that we sell, and the teams and people change in between them. But like as a regular band, it's like normally 5 people on stage. And then we have 2 sound guys, light guy, video guy, tour manager, director, and probably a couple of merch people, depends where we play or how big is the show. And this is a team that operates for the shows, but behind that there is like a lot of people who basically create the show, who create the music, who create the visuals for the show. I would say that like probably around 50 people is like a broader team of Laibach, and it's really also, people have to understand that a lot of times the music that is created is not even created by the band. It's created by some other people with the conceptual idea of Laibach and the director, and this is how it basically goes. It's really, I don't believe there is a band that operates like Laibach operates, and probably also because of that, it's a very unique resulting experience.
That's cool. That's interesting, definitely. So tell me, do you have any specific and any special part of equipment that you bring with you for the live show, and not putting inside of the rider, just something that you build, your guys build something that you bought, like a splitter for guitars in stereo or something?
Well, we have literally complete backline with us, all the instruments, we have all the microphones with us. We have, at the moment, we own 2 soundboards. We literally just need a couple of stands and some cables, and that's it. The rest is completely
for the whole world. You are bringing whenever you go.
Okay. Yeah, well, if you have like a flying shows, then if they're in Europe, normally there would be a team sent to the area with equipment before. But if there would really be like a flying show, then we would rent. It could happen that we could rent everything literally there. But of course, I think we have like on flying shows, the minimum we can do is flying with, I don't know, 5 cases. That's it. But the rest we rent.
Cool. You are a really sound guy. I know you for many years, and your knowledge is really on a high level. So, and I hope lots of the listeners will be interested, to hear some of your favorite maybe part of equipment. Let's say, what is your favorite mixing desk and why? It doesn't matter if it's digital or analog or why. What is and why?
I was for years I was really picky about the soundboards, and I still am picky. In general, I'm a Midas fan. I think these are the best like ever done analog consoles, and of course I would be XL4 Heritage 3000. That would be my favorite and the first choices for analog. But
digital also Midas, or
yes, that's the thing. You know, we are just coming into era where digital boards are becoming really let's say efficient, and they have really good processing. So at the moment, what we have with Leibach, we have the top preamps from Midas, so this top digital stage box.
Yeah.
And we connected with the Wink Behringer, and I'm super happy with this board. There were like people telling me, you have to try this board, and I was kind of running away from it. I didn't want to hear about it. It's Behringer, and then there was like a time when I tried it, and with these preamps, I think it's an awesome board, and I think it really kicks ass. A lot of kind of this pre-generation of sound boards. But yeah, Midas would be my first choice. I also love Yamahas. I mean, I'm comfortable in doing on any kind of board, but what I really don't kind of prefer is digital. I hate those boards. I think they are awful.
Okay.
The way they are structured, the way they sound, and I think for this amount of money, what they offer, you can get really way better boards.
Maybe this was my next question, but because you mentioned Digico, you know, so because you are also studio guy, and you're familiar with many studio plugins for sound processing, and I would then guess, you know, okay, maybe Mate is love Digico and connected with the sound grid and using Waves plugin, but obviously this is not the case.
Well, the thing is, like, if we really go into this digital stuff, you know, Waves is a nice company. They have good products, but like, just talking from the plugin perspective, you have way better plugins than like Waves has. If you find like different companies that produce not maybe that big amount of plugins, but
I know, but it's just connection to the console, so using plugins on the live show.
I've seen so many times Digico crashed with Wave system and with Waves that it's just not reliable, and I hate this idea that you basically buy a board that it's pretty expensive, and then you have to invest in the plugins and this and that. I mean, I'm
thousands of euros,
a Mac guy. I just want to have a stable system that works, that it's simple to operate, and that it does what I tell him to do. And I mean, just having tons of options doesn't make me feel comfortable with it. That's and I also believe that like, because I started in analog era, I have some logic that it's more kind of signal flowish into analog, and less of a programming, you know, like more this intuitive touching and stuff like that. So that's why I would really prefer, I mean, I prefer the boards that are set from this mindset. I don't like the idea of 10,000 options. Just give me basic ones and I'm good with that, you know. That's
cool. That's cool. I can see you're a lecturer and you are a teacher, because this is, as you know, something we teach students, you know, like the knowledge and something that you're comfortable with is the best thing you can have, and 1,000 options can only make things worse, and it doesn't matter how equipment is expensive if you don't have like knowledge and this comfortability, you know, to approach the main things you need to approach the sound. You will mixed up everything. So like, yeah, I agree with you, definitely. The less is more, and with this like knowledge and finding your perfect spot, then you can create the magic. Yeah.
Also, what I believe, for example, because I work in studio environment and I really have time to study sound and to see what preamps do, and like I mixed also a lot of live shows in the studio environment, so I know, like I know what boards have good preamps or what pretend to be good preamps and so on. So that is the probably also the difference between somebody that is kind of also studio based, because on live shows you don't have this detailed stuff that you can figure out, you know. But if you figure it out in studio and you understand it, how to use equipment, how you drive it, how you do this, how you do that, you know, and then you go into a live environment, it would make a drastic change. And
yeah, definitely this connection is great. When you know, when we were like we are, you know, that we are having, you were also teaching live engineer course in Slovenia many years ago, before Corona started, and this whole situation with the professionals, that we also like teach them basics, how to use studio software, you know, just to put a couple of tracks inside and practice every day using tools. And this is like a benefit, because on tour you can practice, maybe if you have 2 gigs per month, you're practicing 2 times a month. But if you're like working in a studio as a basic, you can practice those tools every day to hear the EQ, to hear the compression, to hear the sound, hear the preamps. So you're completely right. This connection is really helping you to create even better sound when you are on the live gig. Cool. But then what is your favorite PA system?
Well,
if there is any.
There is, of course. I am a D&B fan. Also, I love Mayer and I love L Acoustic. Lately, you know, a lot of companies, like these high-end companies, they really are really there, you know, with each other. It's maybe just like slide of preferences, something would sound slightly different, but this is all good. Like I would, D&B is kind of, I would say that it's the most pimp system the way I see it. It is really really sounds nice, high definition, nothing is aggressive, it is smooth, it can be aggressive, you can really do whatever you wish with it, and subs are great. So yeah, I'm definitely a D&B fan. Mayer is rockish, I like it also, and L Acoustics is also really nice. But if I would rank them, I would say D&B, Mayer, L Acoustic, like that would be my top 3 systems to work on. But also some other companies, they have good PAs, but this is just the major, what is standard for kind of rock shows, and what more and more venues and companies are actually having and renting.
That's cool. Thank you. Let's jump on maybe those like kind of topics, differences between approach to the business, expectations when you are going to the show, let's say in between region. Obviously you had a lot of gigs in Slovenia. You had a lot or some gigs in Croatia, in a region, let's say, and you travel all around the world. Can you make some comparison, like in terms of those live events? Where are we when we compare, you know, other countries world? We now hear from Damir, there's a huge differences in Switzerland, you know, and can you tell us some information and yes, maybe what we are missing here?
Okay, that's a very good question. I would say that it has also a lot to do with mentality of a nation, and of course with the people. In general, it is very different if you go from, let's say, in France, or you go to Germany, or you go to UK, or you go to Croatia, Serbia. Every country has its own like flow of how people operate there. Some nations are very like hardworking, and you would see that they are very like precise. They would do everything what you ask, you know, and stuff like that. For example, Chinese, you could have like 10 people working there, and they will all have a specific role. They would do exactly as it is. We had a show in Hong Kong, and I think they one of these shows that we had there, we rented equipment, and they literally find, because we hired also a backline, they literally find photos of our backline and place it exactly as we have it on stage. Like stuff like this could happen in some regions, and in some regions you could come there and they would just, okay, here's your backline. You have it's in cases they wouldn't even put it out or stuff like that. But I would say that the more kind of developed the country is, the more the people are advanced, polite, and they're willing to help. But also, you know, you have these attitudes in, for example, in American crews or British crews. They can be really pain in the ass. And like my first show that I mixed in UK, I came there with Dub Trio, which is an American band, and they're like really kind of really good musicians. And we had a show, and at that time was analog. I had in the club was 32 channel board, and I used 24 channels, and there were 3 bands playing before us. So I said to the guy, to the local engineer, I said, so you have only 8 channels left. So how many of my channels are you going to use for the rest of the band? And he said, no, they all just gonna get 8 channels. That's it. Fuck them. They are only the band that plays before you. So you have this attitude where people don't want to work, or they don't give a fuck, you know. And that's the difference between, I would say, professional world and let's say non-professional world. And I saw, like, for example, the last tour we did in the States with Laibach, we played some shows with Ministry, and I was surprised. Ministry tour in the States had European crew, because the band doesn't want to deal with the attitude of American technicians, for example. That was like mind-blowing for me. So they literally paid the tickets to fly in everybody, deal with all the papers and stuff, just to have the proper team there, you know. But Balkan, you know, like Croatia, Serbia, you can have like some really good crews. I mean, kind of, you know, if the company, if the people are from the company that they do big shows, they need to know something, you know. It's impossible that you would run a show that it's really huge and that the crew there wouldn't know what they're doing. But when you come to smaller gigs, that's another story. You can run into local morons that would screw your day, and it happens anywhere. But also one thing that it is like kind of reversing this whole logic is this. For example, France has a very good equipped venues. If the city, for example, has 30,000 people, they have a venue, it's paid by the state, and so on. But I've noticed that these venues and kind of crews that have this good opportunity, good equipment, good everything good, they actually don't get that much out of this equipment as some people that come from kind of more alternative, underground environment, where they really had to, you know, operate and get 100% of this equipment in order to sound good, you know. These people would normally perform better on the later on the really quality systems and equipment. And that's the difference that I see. Of course, this industry has changed since I've started working, because I'm in the business for literally more than 20 years. And
how change? Can you tell us, what do you think by
I would
change?
say that this show industry in the beginning was more of like, especially the teams were more of the kids that wanted to do something, you know, and they were not professional. Over the years, they built into a professional people. And so all the venues and you know, teams for the bigger festivals, they literally rehearse this practice of theirs for 10-15 years, and now everywhere you go, you know, you have teams that you see them here and there. And sometimes when you fly, you have a flying show, you go to the to some airport and you meet there people from another crew that flies somewhere. And this world of music is not actually that big that people think it is, you know. When you are touring, sooner or later you're gonna run into the same people and you're gonna know what to expect from them and so on. So there are
probably this situation where, like, obviously musicians are not earning money from selling records. Now they're earning money from doing big shows, and now the shows are becoming even bigger, more like theater with like scenography, and everything is becoming like really, really huge because it's the place where they earn money nowadays.
Sure,
yeah?
the competition, you know, is different now, especially when the rock bands, you know, they are not kind of mainstream now. The mainstream is literally pop stars, right? But pop stars, they have like money, they have production, and you know, it's a whole show. So I think the whole industry, especially in rock music, had to kind of adopt this, and also because of technology went further, and equipment for the bands became cheaper, you know. So some stuff, it's way easier to do now than it was possible to do it later. Just if you look at like kind of medium shows, nowadays you can go with a bigger van, put all the equipment there, and you can have a show for a couple of hundred people, you know. But back in the days where you had like big analog board with a lot of outboard and cabling and everything, you know,
it was impossible. Yeah,
it was impossible. So everything started to move quicker, and it's different. It really is different.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. So I don't actually know if you're working for some other bands in Slovenia, but beside Laibach, but what is the situation at the moment in Slovenia? You are familiar with the whole Rent the Show project and everything. What is the situation actually there? Is there enough professionals, or there is so many semi-professionals who is doing the business, but they don't have a clue what they are doing? They just like repeating the same thing, you know, and eventually sounds comes out, but this is like the threshold above they can't go because of the knowledge. Because you remember and you know that like even before Corona, we had students who were enrolling, let's say, live engineer course. They were interested into this field, and in terms of when in the situation where Corona was here, and now after, like, there is not even one person who really, you know, shows some interest. Hey, I want to do a live show. This Corona changed everything. What is in Ljubljana, Slovenia?
Well, I think it's two things that happened here, like that kind of really get us into the situation that we are at the moment. One thing was, and this is also a difference between our countries and the countries that are more, let's say, developed, dumping prices, so on, you know. Before Corona, there were like smaller companies that appeared and did like huge dumping. And because of that, some bigger companies had serious issues, you know, in operating, because some of the organizers or promoters, you know, they see things through the money, or they just don't know it, you know, technically, you know, what is good or better, and how it's going to sound and so on. So we had some of these companies that were crashing the whole scene, you know. But then Corona came, and we had like more than 30% of people run approximately out of the industry. Professionals, kind of really top professionals, they stayed in. Corona didn't affect me personally at all. I had like the most work was that year, literally, but not with live engineering, was almost zero.
Yeah, with the studio, yeah.
Just because I opened it. But the problem now is, of course, you cannot get these people back, and it changed the thing, you know. Also, people are not interested that much into rock shows, you know, and the problem is that rock shows don't bring that much money here in our country that some events do from the, let's say, business perspective, and there is a lack of quality personnel. But I wouldn't necessarily say that this is because of also, of course, because of lack of knowledge, but because, come on, if you don't pay good amount of salary to the people, you can only get the people who are not aware of themselves. And if they're not aware of themselves, they cannot be aware of the situation and responsibilities. And that's how simple it is. And that's why you have situations where stuff doesn't work, but there is a lack of personnel, not only in like, let's say, sound engineers, but people like the setting up crews, like the people who come there and build the whole arenas and shows, and that's
it's the same. Obviously, the same issue that's happening in Croatia and in Slovenia. What I see here, you know, there is those like rental equipment, as you said, those one who are more professional, more expensive. But at the end, I don't see that they promote themselves in a good way, you know, to the business, to the market, to show that why they cost more than some, as you mentioned, small rental companies that just came, you know, like, well, everything needs to kind of
for the person who hires the, let's say, the company, the PA company, it is always a budget that they will look into. But from a, let's say, a professional aspect, especially in these countries that are less developed or where people are not used to pay big tickets and the musicians don't get enough money, it is always, I would say, it's a bigger gap between the people that are really top and the people that are low quality. This mid-range is actually lacking. I would say that you know, even if Corona is here or whatever crisis, Ferraris and Maseratis, and Lamborghinis, they will always sell their cars. And this is the same in the professional level. You will always have people that don't fit in this category. They don't have to promote themselves. They just have job because they are so good, you know. And but
this is what
this medium.
This is what I realized through the years when you mentioned this like high level and this like lower level. There is no mid range. This is what I realized in the last 15 years. It's hard to explain. It's some kind of ego, you know. Those one who like learn some small parts of the business, they are still not professionals. When you offer the education to them, they say, I don't need it. I know everything, you know, because like they learn a little and they think like that's the whole world. They don't understand how the audio industry is huge. And they're always in like 80% of situation. Do I need it? I don't need it. I know everything. I learned already everything. You know, I create something and I know everything. So this is what I can tell, what I experienced from last like 15 years. And that's why this like mid-range is kind of missing, because those one on low range, they don't accept, okay, I don't know it. I had so many situations in school when someone approached with this, you know, I saw your school, I'm doing like music production for many years, and I'm thinking, do I need education or not? And I said, it's the most easiest way to test it. I give you an exam, you write an exam, and then we will see, do you know it or not? And eventually, in most of the cases, those like results are so low. And then I just show them, okay, this is your knowledge. Then Contact us if you want to upgrade your knowledge or not. And there is also so many situations where when they never contact us again, you know, because like they kind of find themselves like that we insult them or something, you know, by showing them your knowledge is not on the good level, you know. So, and probably there, as you mentioned, this like culture of every country, and you know, and I would say in Croatia, Slovenia also is the same situation. There's kind of, they don't want to invest a little more in education, not money, just time. You don't need money to invest, just time in your education.
Well, when I started doing sound, it was just when they opened SAE College in Ljubljana.
Yeah.
And a lot of people from that were doing like live engineering at that time when I started, they didn't have education. And I did education, and it was really, really, really funny to observe for me, because I had like knowledge to observe other engineers, and I literally understood why they are not like having proper sound, or like I saw the mistakes that they do, and I learned a lot actually. And I am still surprised a lot of times how big bands tour with, for example, not really good engineers compared to their level of like how big they are. You see a lot of shows actually that are pretty big names, big artists, big productions, and also there is a lack of knowledge, and I would say not as quality as you would expect for the bigness of the artist itself, you know. So knowledge definitely plays a big part, but also on the other hand, there is this business works also in connections that you have, you know. So it's not only the knowledge or know-how. I would say there are three different kind of lines that operate here. One is definitely the people who are really good and they don't have to search for clients. Then you have people that need connections to operate there, and like they protect their lobbies and so on. And then you have people who are there just because there is a lack of personnel, so they just bring in somebody and you will do the thing, you know. And this is something that I kind of also miss in a structured, let's say, what I would put into the, let's say, a company as you have, as you're kind of creating, would be like a structure. Okay, these people, they are this level, they do that kind of stuff. These people, they can do that kind of stuff. These people can do that kind of stuff, you know. As any company, it has like stages. I would also put these stages into sound engineers. You know, it's not just a sound engineer, everybody who can turn some buttons on the board, you know, but it's a huge difference if you can mix a show with 100 channels, or you are able to mix a club show, you know. That's the
Yeah. What is for you? What do you think? What is easier if you are only working as a studio producer and you decide to go to the live to be sound technician, folk engineer, or opposite? You know, you are folk engineer and then you want to go and start working in the studio. What do you think is harder? I know it's a tough question, but
it's a matter of attitude, I would say, because I've seen couple of really good studio engineers that did complete mess in live sound. I would forbid them to mix a show, but they're really good in studio. The thing is that I would say that for live shows, a person has to have attitude, you know, balls to do it, basically, because you lack time, you lack, you have situations that are not perfect. A lot of times deal with a lot of problems. Personnel, it's a very fast dynamic stuff that is happening around concerts, and reliability is the key factor. But in studio, you know, you have time, you're in your environment, you know the place, you know the acoustics, everything is set there. It's nobody who's pressing your nerves. everything is relaxed.
You can drink a coffee, smoking cigarette,
Yes,
relax, and then start working. Yeah.
Different game, but because I moved from live shows into the studio, and because I also I'm a musician, I don't have problems switching those two, let's say, environments. And I'm doing also mastering and like really defined stuff. And for me, this stuff is not that, let's say, technically different than it is attitude different. Some people will try to argue it's different studio, but now with the processing that the boards offer, literally now you have a whole studio in a digital soundboard, and it's the same. You have the same
equipment is the same, everything is the same.
So now it's not really different more than attitude and, let's say, the PA or the acoustics. That's all it is, the difference. But the attitude and the, let's say, the speed that you need to do some stuff, it's a complete different game changer. And I would say,
so I would guess for you, studio is better environment than live.
I really love to do live shows, but in some sense they are not that inspiring me from the sound perspective, because studio, it is more detailed, and you really have to, something that you mix in 2 hours of show, you would do in studio really detailed for a very long time, so it's more creative studio. And the studio is also a process where you participate in creating songs and stuff like that and producing it, and that's it's another aspect that life doesn't offer. And yes, I prefer more studio, but I also love to go out. There are periods when I don't want to hear concerts, and there are periods where I don't want to see studio. So yeah.
It's a normal thing. Yeah. Okay. For the end, do you have some message for our listeners? Just don't do it. Don't go in the audio industry. There is like a joke, if you want to earn money for a living, don't go in the music industry. So don't be a musician, but that's just a joke.
I'm not a person. I earn good money out of
music. I know.
So I cannot say don't go there because of money. But I could say this, that music is, in general, any kind of field of music is a very nice working environment where people have a lot of fun, and it also has a lot of responsibility, and you need to be a special person to work in music. And if you can manage to combine knowledge and your character, and find a good team where you can work, that's a good thing. I mean, people who are in this field, they enjoy it, all of them. So yeah, I mean, people could be inspired in this area, and it's nice. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Cool. Mate, thank you so much for being here with us. Until the next time, see you. Okay. Stay with us a couple of more minutes. Društvo, pravimo kratku pauzu i uskoro nam dolazi naš idući gost. Okay, guys, welcome. So we are continuing with our last guest, Lee Katanes. He is reaching us from Washington, D.C. We had some great connection. He was in the school with our colleague, Luca, who is also having band in the USA. So some kind of great connection. It's a pleasure to have you here. Lee Katanes is stage manager for Tesh Sultana, and he was also the folk engineer for some other bands. And we can say Tesh Sultana will have in July will have gig in Zagreb. I think it's 19th of July. So for all of you who would love to hear Tesh Sultana or maybe meet Lee Katanes, we can organize something. Hopefully you guys will have a time. We already planned some dinner if you will have time. So it's great to have you here, definitely. So yeah, we can start. Thank you for joining us, and tell us something about you. What you actually, what is your work, what is your start, what is your education, and how you came to this position where you're now. So hi.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Hey everyone, thanks for having me, Marin. It's yeah, really cool to be here. I always love to talk about the industry and get more people excited about live concert production and all the work involved with that. Yeah, I used to kind of play in bands, and that's kind of what sparked the interest. My one buddy's shitty metal band in high school was like, "Hey, you've got like a 2-track recorder. Can you come over and record our band?" And I had no idea like how to do any of that or kind of that world existed, and we just kind of figured it out from there. But that kind of put a little spark in that world of things and got me kind of fired up about learning more about the music recording process and things that went into that. And as it kind of came time to pick something to do in university, and that was a good option. So I went to a 4-year school, have a bachelor's of science from American University here in Washington, D.C. And that was mostly a music recording program. So I learned a lot about that. The concentration was in physics. So we did a lot of the electronics, got into the acoustics of things. And I think that helped lay a strong foundation technically for the stuff, as well as musically and the creative side of things, which I think for me as a creative person and as a very technical person too, this world is always a very cool intersection of those two. So you get the creative with the technical, and really enjoy that. But yeah, I've been, as far as the kind of career stuff and where I'm at now, I like to say I'm an audio engineer first, but I do a lot of other live production, such as production management, with stage managing as well, with Tosh. So Tosh Sultana, I was jumped on as a front house engineer first, and we did the first couple US tours together. We did down in South America, the Lollapalooza festivals down there. So we got to mix some really big shows down there. That was fun. And as Tosh's crew kind of evolved and they went back to a more Australian-based crew, they brought me back into stage manage, and just because I was good at interfacing with our local crews wherever we were, and could kind of get things done, get things together, knew how everything worked, and had a great reputation and relationship with Tosh, so that way we could have a show there. But yeah, I think things kind of evolved, and I've been really lucky in pursuing those different opportunities. But I think that just I guess goes to show that there's lots of jobs in this industry, as you're instructing and teaching here, and getting people fired up about the different roles in the industry here. I guess that's a good kind of a start there. But as far as my background and the things that get me fired up about live production.
Cool. Okay, what is your task? Basically, we all know as we start this conversation, also with Mate as a folk engineer, and you said you worked for Tasha as a folk engineer, and now your position is a stage management. What are your tasks basically in this stage management? What is this person is doing actually? What is your role and
Yeah, that's a good question to kind of define that. And I think it depends on the act, and it depends on the team that you have. But really, the stage manager, the way I look at it, is you're the first one in, you're the last one out, and you're kind of in charge of interfacing with that. So I think about you either a stage manager as on like the local side, whether that's for a venue, for a festival, for whatever show or events happening, versus a stage manager on the touring side, which I've been able to do a bit of both. I do a lot of the local festivals here in DC. I've worked with tons of bands that have come through, and with that side of things, sometimes you're advancing the show. So you're reaching out to these artists that are coming through saying, hey, this is the spec, this is the stage, let's talk about your rider, what backline do you need? And you're advancing all that show. So that way, when they show up, we've got all their gear ready for them. We've got the power requirements that they need. We know that they're traveling with a front of house engineer, monitor engineer, lighting tech, just that advanced process as well. So that way, when you show up on the loading dock, there's no questions, hopefully, and then you can go from there. But as the touring side, so I show up with Tosh. I'm, ideally the first one off the bus. I do like to sleep though, so I try to get up as promptly as I can. But we show up there. I meet our local crew, interface with them, and make sure that we've got our, we send 4 stagehands to go out with the audio consoles. We get our lighting crew together. We might have, stage decks to build for our risers. But basically just working with our local crew, making sure everybody has everything that they need to work, and then making sure things run on time, getting the band on stage on time, making sure the opener is finishing up and wrapping the setup when it's time to go. And then, but really just making sure that things run smoothly, putting out fires as they happen. That's the live event thing. There's always something that could change, and you just got to roll with the punches and try to do good work that way. So it's definitely a different position, and a lot of times in this industry, depending on like if it's a smaller band and it's a smaller crew, like you might be wearing multiple hats as a front house engineer, as a tour manager, as a stage manager, and I think those different roles make you more valuable. It's nice to be paid to just do one and not have to do all of it. But so with Tasha's crew, we've got there's at least a dozen of us, and we've got a production manager that does all the advancing, and then that way I get to show up and just make sure that everything runs smooth that day. So it's a team effort for sure, but definitely an exciting position to be out.
Yeah, cool. We heard from Mate that his experience and for some bands when they did the USA tour, sometimes they book European sound technician, for engineers, and just because they don't like to work with the USA. It's different mentality and completely different approach. And you were also like touring in Europe, and you're from USA. Can you make I would not say opposite comments or redirect things, but just maybe not in perspective of technician, maybe in perspective of stage management. What is the difference between Europe and USA? Who makes the more headaches?
That's funny. I did hear Mate's comment about that, and it is funny as I try not to be the loud American in the venue or wherever I'm traveling, really. And Tash Sultana's crew is all Australian based for the most part. So the joke is that I'm like the least American that they know. So maybe there is something to say about our mentality sometimes. But I think that's, you face that with different cultures when you go. And I think in general, the way my approach, and this isn't maybe every American and just in general, any tech or manager's approach is, like trying to be someone that you want to work with again, in that way. And I always try to I represent the artists that I work with, whether that's Tosh, whether that's Shade, or some of these other bands that I tour with, and because people will remember that. They'll be like, oh, that band that came through, oh yeah, they're a bunch of pricks, like we don't, and then they'll remember that next time that they come around or they see you, because it's a small world when it comes down to it. So I think there's certainly different approaches that people take. Sometimes the American approach is stomp your feet and make noise if things aren't right. But I think ultimately that comes down to, the work that you do ahead of time, preparation for that show or that event. Obviously there's things that change on site and you have to work with that. And it's, it depends on, like, I guess, so yeah, touring in Europe, sometimes there's a bit of a language barrier. And as Mate said, there's different approaches to how people can be very direct in certain parts of the world. And, that's not them being rude. That's just saying, this is how it is, or you need this, or you messed up. And that's just how you do it. And I think the trick is to not associate the ego with that, and just more focus on the work and how it can get done, and find the solutions rather than, worry about tempers can get, erupted, if you will. So yeah, I think, there's lots of ways to deal with that. And it is, different parts of the world. And I guess, you guys were talking about the different structure of things in here, and dealing with local crew. And sometimes, no one wants, I don't know. I say there's always the meme of the jaded sound person that's just, been doing it for so long, and they're, no matter what you say, it's wrong. And, they'll complain if you need another mic stand or anything like that. So I think I always try to keep that in my head and just not be that person, ultimately. So, but yeah, dealing with, it depends on the venue you come into. You're going to deal with some pricks, and that's just life. And you just kind of navigate that as best you can. But I think for other, I guess, other European or anyone else in the world coming to the US, there's, depending on the venue that you work with, there's a lot of the union stagehands. That's bigger venues that we deal with here, and that's definitely can be a challenge. It's a different approach to things, and strict rules about certain things, and that's, the union's there to protect their labor and their rights there, and it's you just have to work with that. And there's sometimes in situations where you can get stuck, where work stoppages or things like that. But ideally you've got a production manager or stage manager that can handle that and knows how to work with these people and to get things moving. And it's just people trying to work, and there are good opportunities for that here, and and they do good work when you get them there. So yeah, it's just different.
You mentioned language barrier. So it's obviously you face this situation that in Europe, some countries, they actually really don't know speaking English. As Germany, Italians, they don't want to speak English. France, they don't want to speak English. So it's obviously you had a lots of problematic situation with this language barrier.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say problematic. Obviously, as we come in an English speaking crew, we're guests, in these countries. And it's funny, we wake up on the tour bus, and I always ask, it's like, all right, what country are we in? What language do they speak? I don't speak it anyway, but at least knowing yes, no, thank you, please. And a lot of stuff can be communicated by pointing and grunting. And and that's that. And I think I find myself being more concise with this thing in this case over here, or that case in the truck like this, and trying to be concise. And most people speak English in these places, and like you said, a lot of it can be nonverbal. But I always try to introduce myself, say hello and thank you in the native tongue if I can. But like I said, most places in Europe that I've traveled, and even the shows in Japan, we've had a translator or things like that. It's just you have to be a little more concise with what you're saying and how you say it, just to make sure things get done. But it's all black boxes with wheels that go on a truck. So, and most people know the how it goes. So I think,
the procedure,
being patient with it and being concise, because if that person's doing something wrong, ultimately it's my fault, so that I didn't communicate that. So
good enough. What is the situation at the moment? At the moment in the USA, let's say we faced in the whole world this situation with Corona and pandemic, and it was like it really crushed the event industry, and what's changed? We saw from our first guest Damir that his company, they just switched to digital events, live streamings and everything, just to fulfill the gaps in the business, and everything went well. Did you experience some changes after Corona, maybe lack of the professionals? Are there enough professionals for the business? What is the situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a tough time for everyone involved. I went through some life changes as well, and things kind of came back with that virtual. Everybody kind of tried to pivot and get into these virtual events. And at first I was, having a career in live music and live production, like have to disappear like that takes a toll. But we started to come back with these virtual events, doing some video streaming. I worked with a house of worship, a church here in DC, and they invested in the video streaming and stuff like that. So I learned a little bit of video production, as much as I hate to get into that world. Mostly an audio guy myself, but yeah, learning some of those new skills, but seeing how that's now come back, where it wasn't just virtual events, but now like a lot of these companies, I do some corporate audio AV work in the area, and these companies have positioned themselves with more of this video equipment and more the live stream or hybrid event stuff. So now as an audio engineer, I'm working, I've got my mics in the room, or whether it's someone speaking from a podium or a lapel mic. Now I'm also mixing for broadcast. I got to make sure that broadcast mix is at a certain loudness, and applying some of these different techniques to what would have just been a normal, in-house show. So I think that's something that's still here and that's lasting. As far as the personnel, I've got friends that have left the industry or moved on, learned coding, or got went back to school or used that opportunity for that. So there are a lot of people that moved on from it, but there's also a lot I talked to in DC. We did a lot of the lobbying for the Save Our Stages Act, which was providing money for venues, small and large, just to keep things moving, knowing that this is a pause, it's temporary, and we'll be back to work soon. So, but I talked to a lighting tech who's worked in the industry for 20 years, and he's like, what else am I going to do? Like, I'm invested in this. This is the company I own. Like, I have all this gear. I'm not going to give up on that. I'm not going to just go become a baker overnight, and because everybody's making sourdough bread, so that's interesting for that. But then I guess even coming back now, our first in March of last year with Tosh, we were back in Europe for our first European tour, and we were in Germany about the time that they just started having live events again. And there's a big labor shortage for crew, for our stagehands, and we had a full number of crew there, but the only tech who had any experience was our crew lead, who worked the Tosh show the last year, and he was back. He was great, and we had bodies there, a lot of university students, some older gentlemen as well. But in that case, it was people that didn't know anything about how a show comes together. So again, we had to be very concise with how we told them what to do, and it's not just, hey, grab me that XLR cable or that Sockapex cable. It's that thing right there, bring it over to me, and then we'll show you how to do it. So involved a little more patience there, but I think people are excited, to come back to live events, yourself included, I'm sure, and our other guests here. And I know I won't take this job for granted ever again. I truly find passion in a live show, and I'm just definitely excited to be doing it.
Yeah. Is there enough education? Because in Europe, we're facing this situation that just couple of maybe schools or institutions are organizing some education for let's say sound technician, for engineer, or light technician, or video or rigging. So there is really small amount of private schools who are doing that. We were facing the same problem issue when we were starting, because it's different, educate the students for the studio. You can have studio in your facility and that's it, they can come to practice, but for the live for engineer, monitor engineer, whoever, sound technician, you need to rent a club, a venue, location, rent equipment. So it's really expensive to do that. And accordingly to that, then scholarship would be, also like a fee for the school would be huge, that small amount of person will be able to pay this, and this is repeating for like many years. So there is no marketing, no poster on the street where you can say, hey, do you want to be a light technician or sound technician? So through the years, young persons are really losing perspective that this industry really exists. If there will be like in one city 10 schools for promoting the same thing, more and more person will realize, okay, this is something that exists. This is something where I can earn some money, live from it, So it's, do you have any comparison in States? Is there any education, like just to enroll to be a live engineer, for light, for sound, for...
Yeah, I think, it's very interesting you say that. And I think there are, I see a lot more universities reaching into those programs. So the school I went to, American University, had it was audio technology program. So that was, they leaned into that studio. They invested in a very nice recording studio designed by one of the guys who designed Electric Lady in New York. So really nice studio, cool. Here with equipment. And yeah, obviously that was a 4-year school for that. And I think there are a lot more programs, seeing like a lot of more universities that are investing in that program, knowing that it's a proper career. Like I always joke that I don't have a real job, but it's a proper career. There's lots to learn. There's specific certifications you can get to know how to use different gear, whether that's digital audio networking, getting into the more physical stuff, whether that's the console certification or PA rigging and just rigging in general. So I think there are lots of programs in that way, but I think I've been seeing, I also serve on the board of the School of Audio Engineering in Nashville, and for a couple of years we were involved with their program, just talking about how just the structure of that program and what are things that people going into school now, what do they know, or what do they need to know coming out, and versus whether a decade ago that was some signal flow with an analog console. Now it's X number of digital consoles on the market that you need to know to be able to walk up and use. Digital audio networking, so your IP addresses for connecting Dante or whatever your drive racks are, and I think that's coming up there. So kind of investing in that program and helping them to tailor these programs so that way people can come out of these programs with actual tangible skills. Because some other people will say because I work with plenty of other people that didn't go to school for it, that started washing dishes at the club. They worked up from there. They'd help patch the stage at night. Next thing you know, they've learned on the console and they're mixing shows. So I think there are lots of trajectories into it, but obviously a formal education. I think there's a lot more programs here in the US, at least in the DC area. There's a couple actual programs, whether that's in technical theater. So I think that's another big route for that. But I think a lot of people that I know just have a love for music or played music professionally, learned how to record themselves because of that, and then learned that they can also make a living being on the other side of the band or on the other side of the music. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for that. And I think just for anyone kind of looking into that, just seeing the options that you can get from that. What opportunities are you going to get out of that? But also, what can you, I think you need to invest as well, not just expect a job when you come out, and say, it's like, oh, I know how to use this thing. But really, you're going to come out of a program, you're going to need to cut your teeth, and you're going to learn something new every day. And like Matteo was saying, with these, younger engineers that think they know everything. And I think that's a dangerous position to kind of be in, to know enough, but also think you know it all. But when really I'm still learning something new every show, whether that's something I can do better, or how can I improve, or, I think, or learning from my colleagues that are amazing at what they do. So I think keeping that mentality of always learning something is a great place to be.
Yeah, so maybe also this connection, with like growing with your knowledge is kind of connected with the fact of how much you are earning, or will you earn more money if you invest more in yourself? So everything is kind of connected. What is an average, let's say, fee for a Foch engineer guy in USA? So like, I don't know, I know sometimes it's different, depend on how many visitors, what is like, what's the band and everything, but like some kind of average. So just as information.
Sure. I mean, it's a varying question, of course, depending on the venue, depending on the company. So I kind of look at it as whether it's a club or event, music venue in town. A lot of the venues will be around like $250 to $300 for a shift. And that's anywhere from a 200 cap venue to maybe 500 or even 1,000 cap venue. So it really depends on that. As far as making money in this industry, there's lots of different ways you can do a lot of, whether that's what we call like rock and roll. So it's like the club venues and stuff like that. You can work in those venues. There's lots of other audio and video kind of corporate work in the district here in DC. And those rates are generally higher, from anywhere from 40 to 50 to $60 an hour for a 10-hour day. So you're looking at $600 and maybe overtime in that sense. But so I think it's a vast range of things like that. How on the touring side too, you might take a little bit less of a rate, knowing that you're going to get paid that for a week, or get paid a weekly rate, plus some per diems and meals covered in that way. But yeah, I think I've thought about rates a lot over these years, and looking at opportunities and saying, okay, is this opportunity better? This is going to be more of a fun tour. I get to mix this band. It's going to be great, versus some of the more boring corporate things that you can get into. But I try to balance it out a little bit too, so that way I'm having fun and enjoying it, and also paying rent to live, and eat. So, but yeah,
you're working also in the theater.
Occasionally, I've done some theater stuff too, but yeah, I do a lot of, like I said, some of the corporate work where we, we'll be in some event space here in DC. There's lots of senators, and we're putting lavalier mics on, things like that. And I've learned a lot of skills in that world where you have to be really precise. You're mixing on these shows. It's less of a creative thing, but more of an execution thing. But you still strive for a really good show regardless. And then there's a lot of other theaters in the area that do music stuff, theater stuff. But there's, like I said, there's lots of different opportunities, and I think kind of knowing how to do, and being varied in that too. And like Matte's, I'm sure, a great front of house engineer, also does the studio stuff, where I'm also doing the corporate audio, where putting a lavalier and mixing that show, making sure that mic doesn't feed back ever. That stuff's going to apply to my music shows, where I can make a vocal sound pristine and cut through a mix as well. So I think being a well-rounded engineer or production person is valuable as well.
Yeah, the wider tasks you are doing, you are like having more knowledge.
Absolutely.
For doing them, yeah.
And I think that also So just to add, like that also applies to my stage managing. So when I get hired as a stage manager or production manager or technical director, whatever the title is, I'm still thinking like an audio engineer. So I know what my crew needs as well. So I can say, yes, we need this, or no, we need that, just to set my crew up for success. And then having that knowledge of, more lighting stuff or more video stuff is going to apply to that role as well. So I think one of the companies I worked with early on said, you're going to learn it all. You're going to drive the truck. You're going to set the generator up. You're going to set lights up, and then you're going to run sound. So I think a lot of that applies, and to be helpful with that. And you don't have to know everything about everything, but I think it helps to know a little bit so you can assist with other departments to make a show come together.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now you are trying to make your team feel comfortable and receive the best equipment and team as they get. So because you were in this position, you were in their position, and obviously you hated when things were not running smoothly. So let me raise a question, maybe the same as I asked Mate. What is your favorite mixing desk and why?
Yeah, we always love to talk about our consoles of choice. And it's contrary to Mate. I do like my Digico consoles. That's one that I've been mixing for music mostly. So with Tosh, when I was mixing front of house, I was touring on a SD9, and our monitor engineer was also on Digico, and it just worked well with that system to be, in that loop. Everything hit our one rack, came to both consoles. We could send stuff back and forth with, over the opticore loop, and that system worked really well for us. And I think that's my preference for music stuff too, just my workflow for that. And I was also mixing monitors for another band called Ocean Alley, another Australian band, and had a SD11 for monitors on that one too. So, but just that workflow is something that I'm used to for music. I know the muscle memory. I know how to reach for things really quick, but for the corporate work, and also like a lot, even music too, the Yamaha consoles, their newer stuff, the CL or the QL is what's usually on the corporate side of things too. So I think learning the ins and outs of that, and again the Dante protocols, the digital audio networking for that is also really good to know. So we had some issues on my last show where there was an issue with that, and I could jump in and try to troubleshoot and make sure we had a show because we had lost our whole network of control basically. But I think, aside from those preferences, just knowing how to use the tool, really being in it, and having your workflow down, being able to be quick on it too. I learned on a Behringer X32 at this rock venue in Virginia here, and we'd mix 8 bands a night with 10-minute changeovers, and I got really fast on it. So I think, and you could argue it's not the best sounding console, or it wasn't, it's limited in that sense, but
it's effective.
It's effective in that way, and knowing how to use the tool, I think, is more important than the tool. Obviously, if you're getting into a bigger show where you've got more inputs and there's more weight on that, having the right tool for the job is essential, but also making sure that you know how to use that tool when you show up is the other half of that. So
it's more important than the sound of the preamps on the console. So
and like you said,
if you can make the both worlds together in the higher state, so then you are like,
absolutely. And I think this other theater that I've been working at, they've got the Ravage, the Yamaha, the PM5 there, and that's been pretty exciting getting to mix on that one on this really nice theater, and just figuring out that workflow too. So there's new toys out there. It's always fun to learn something new, and figure out a new workflow and do that. But as Mate was saying, hearing the different preamps and the difference between the studio with the live, as you get that really fine, now you can listen again and again. And but I feel like tours these days, now you've got all these options for virtual sound check. You can record your whole set, and you can program your entire show ahead of time and just go next on your snapshots on Digico or any of these boards. So I think that you can really take that live show now and really come in with that fine lens. And there's some fantastic front of house engineers that I know that, and obviously you have to have the prep and the budget and the time to do that, to be able to go ahead and do that. But I think you can really dial things in and really make a killer show that sounds great on most of these desks now these days. So I think making sure that you take that time for that prep ahead of time, because you're not going to go the first show and try to mix, you can, and we do it all the time with festivals where it's the first time you're seeing a band, and you're going to do the best you can, and you're going to know what signal flow, what chain usually works for that instrument and that band. But yeah, it's being able to have more time with seeing a show again and again to really refine it is really exciting on the touring side of things.
Yeah, cool. Did Croatia fulfill every your needs for a rider for Ter Sultana gig in July?
Well, yeah, we'll see. It'll be my first time out there, so I'm very excited to see Zagreb and yeah, have the show there at Hala Park. That'll be a lot of fun. I'm not involved in the advancing of it, but usually our production manager does a good job, and it should be a fun one for sure. I know we carry on this tour, we carry the audio consoles, the backline, risers, and a lighting and video floor package, but we'll show up to a PA that's already built, hopefully, and yeah, we'll have some fun. Yeah.
So it's how it's complicated to bring all of your equipment with you, like also in terms of like the mixing desk. Isn't it easier just like save a scene and then just order it in a rider, in the country where you are going? And
yeah, that's it really depends on the artist that you're working with there. So with Tasha's setup, it's pretty particular, and we do a lot of prep ahead of time to have that console ready to go. Sure, you could show up with a show file, but there's so much inputs and outputs that work with our show that we kind of can't do that necessarily. We're trying to kind of refine it a little bit more so that way we can do that. And some of the other bands that I work with, we carry a monitor rack, and so that this band Shade, they're like a pop trio. So they've got an Ableton session, a bunch of MIDI, keyboards, drums, etc. And that session is run there. It hits their own, it's a Waves LV1 rig for their in-ear monitoring. And then we spit it out to a local front of house console. So I've got show files for them, whether that's Digico, Avid, Yamaha. And that way I can just get that. And that show is a little more simple in that, and it's a little more mobile in that sense, where we can fly into a festival with, a half a dozen or pieces of gear and rock up, plug it into a local console. I can put my USB in, make sure it all shows up, and rock a show that way. So, but as we get into the Tosh stuff, we're carrying a little bit more, where we've got multiple trucks on the road with that for this upcoming tour. So we're able to carry a little bit more, keep a little more consistency with that. But again, that costs money. So you might not have that luxury with a smaller band where you're coming into a club and you've got, a Yamaha one day, a Digico the next day, a Midas the following day, and you can build, build your scenes or your show files ahead of time. And I definitely recommend doing that and being prepared for the different situations. But you're gonna, how the show should sound, and then you're gonna work on that different console to get it there. So
cool. For the end, do you have something to say to our listeners, especially those maybe young ones who are just starting or will start?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very exciting industry.
Don't start. It will be like, don't start. Try something else.
Right. I think there's a lot of hard work in this industry for sure. And definitely if you're looking for that, if you're looking for some consistency, if you're looking for your weekends off, maybe a job at a bank will work better. But if you're looking for something a little more exciting, and obviously,
definitely,
and obviously we're passionate about live music, about these shows, and about live events, connecting people together. With that, I'm lucky to travel the world and meet people that have a shared passion for music. And I think really, yeah, I think that gratuity is really cool, and just finding that passion. And as you're getting to this, like I said, there's hard work, but be someone that you're going to want to work with. Again, you know, I've made friends all over the place. There's plenty of people that are grumpy, that are jerks, and you're like, I'm not, yeah, we don't need that. But if you find people that are like great to work with, be that person. So that way they say, hey, I remember you, like, you know, I got an opportunity, you know, be that person that they're going to want to work with again. I think that's a great thing. And always keep learning, and always keep it interesting. Even if you're mixing the same band over and over again. I have some friends that have mixed the same country band for years, and they're still making it interesting. They're bringing in new gear. They're trying a new console, bringing some outboard gear in. But yeah, just finding ways to keep it interesting, and also take time for yourself too. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is I was just gigging, just working all the time. And I think it's important to take time for yourself.
Relax.
Remember you've got personal relations, you know, whether that's, you know, see your friends on the days off, and, you know, keep those relationships going, and take some time for yourself too. You know, the mental health is goes a long way. So
the most important. Yeah, definitely. That's a great words, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us. We will see you in July in Zagreb.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much.
And enjoy on your works, on your tour, and thank you for being with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Cool. See you. Bye, Lee. Bog svima. Evo, došli smo do kraja sa zadnjim gostom. Nadam se da ste čuli neke zanimljive informacije, saznali nešto novo. Ovo je prva konferencija, prvi webinar gdje smo se malo više bazirali na situaciju, što je bilo prije, odnosno za vrijeme, što nakon korone i kako su se određene zemlje ili bendovi nosili s time. Za iduću konferenciju vam pripremamo malo više tehničkih stvari, malo više toga oko same opreme, tako da pratite nas na društvenim mrežama, subscribe-ate se na YouTube kanal kako bi dobili na vrijeme sve informacije vezano uz novi random show. A opet ponavljam, ukoliko želite biti dio nas malo bliže, odite na našu web stranicu i pošaljite nam prijavnicu da postanete dio našeg tima. Nadam se da nismo bili prenaporni. Isprike još jednom za onaj početak sa zvukom. Sad znamo šta se može dogoditi, pa idući puta toga sigurno neće biti. I to je to. Uživajte. Vidimo se. Bok.